Welcome to the Podunk Polymath Podcast dedicated to the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. I'm your host, Chris. Come on in. This is episode 31 of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. Thanks again for joining me. I hope you all doing super wonderful. This week, first I wanted to mention that Marissa McCool of the Inciting Incident Podcast and of General Awesomeness has become a patron, and that is just one of the most awesome things that has happened to me in a while. So I'm really grateful, and I really appreciate her, and I'm really excited that she's going to come to ReasonCon, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention once again that NaNoCon is going to be here next week, March 18th. Of course, it's the day after St. Patrick's Day, so don't drink too much, or if you do, make sure you take some aspirin in the morning or something. I don't know. Figure it out, but be there. Just found out that Adam Collins is going to be there, as well as Jen from None Other Atheist Podcast. Bobby Carey is going to be there. Joe Kindick, Tucker Drake, Zach Law is going to be there as well. Speaking of Zach Law, I have a little special guest for the pre-ramble this week. It is the formidable beer-drinking studmeister, Zach Law. How's it going, Zach?
Well, thank you very much. I do want to bring up that Marissa was Patreon with me first, so haha. But it's okay. We're all doing it. And what I appreciate about tonight, even though we don't do video in this show, is that we're both drinking beers about as dark as our soul.
My soul's considerably darker than this beer. I feel it would be remiss also if we did not mention what beers we were drinking, since beer is going to be a part of the show. I myself am drinking Evil Twin Brewing, Yin and Yang Black and Tan. It's a mix of American Imperial and IPA, I believe. Clocking it at some 11% ABV. That's high alcohol content. And Zach, what are you drinking?
Well, actually, while I was preparing for the interview with Marissa, I heard that she liked Storm King from Victory, which is in Pennsylvania. So I bought a 4-pack, and so that's my starter beer. And then I have the Brooklyn Black Chocolate Stout as well. Warming up, because with this nice stout, you got to kind of pour it, let it sit for maybe 20 minutes. It gets a little warmer. It's interesting. This should be interesting since I did a little day drinking before the show, so we'll see. I'll be more cogent, less cogent. We'll see. Time will tell.
Interestingly enough, I had literally just bought Storm King and was about to walk out the store, and then found out at the last minute that the tap actually was working for this yin and yang shit I got. So I got a growler of that. And also interestingly, the Brooklyn chocolate stout that you're drinking, I have drank in a growler from that same location before and got rip-roaring drunk. So, and I didn't realize when I got it the first time that it was high grav. So I got high as fuck. I drank it a little too quickly.
Yeah, that's the only problem with growlers. And there used to be a growler place really close to me, and I'd get the 64 ounce. And it'd be like NFL Sunday, and I would drink the whole thing in a day because it's like a 2-liter bottle of Coke. Like, once you open it, the carbonation only lasts so long. So I was like, oh, let me drink the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, it can be a bit much because you're like, hey, if I'm getting 64 ounces, I want the good stuff. So you end up getting the higher gravity stuff like you have, and the results can be interesting.
So, yeah, definitely. But I know how to, 64 ounces is a little less than a 6-pack. But I know how to pace myself now, hopefully, so we won't be too sloppy, perhaps.
We're going to find out about your pacing ability next weekend in Nashville.
Exactly. You shall be bringing beers, and you have not told me which ones. You said all of them, which, whatever. You're going to be bringing Atlanta brews. I, of course, know some Nashville brews here. I've already got a couple in mind. I'm going to have to search them out, but we shall see. Hopefully we will be able to meet up the night before at a secret location. So
yeah, when you get to know the right people, then you know where the parties are. Because you talked to Patrick Horst, who's kind of running the NaNoCon show, and I talked to him this week, and I got to find out some inside skinny. I also heard that we're kind of meeting in a Unitarian kind of church, and they seem to be okay with you bringing alcohol, which sounds fun, but if we're going to be staying in a building an entire day listening to speakers, that could be a bit far. I mean, ReasonCon, I had a stash of beer in my room. This is in Hickory, North Carolina, but I didn't bring any down during the day. It was, saved for the evening. But You never know.
I got to plan that out. I'm thinking about bringing a growler with me to ReasonCon and maybe some other shit. And maybe there's a bomber of Yazoo Bomber, which is really good. Yazoo Sioux, which is like Baltic Porter.
Yeah, well, when I was looking up my beers to bring to NaNoCon, I just did a Beer Advocate actually does a list of highest rated beers by state.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I looked at a list for Georgia, and I was like, I've had this, I can find this. Some of them are limited beers that you can't get, but I think Sioux was rated number 2 in the whole state. And Sioux is kind of like, it's like a porter or a stout, and it's kind of a bitter stout, but I enjoyed it. And for a bomber, it was like $5 or $6, and that's pretty cheap. So that's good stuff. They have a couple like Walking Dead beers that have come out, and I don't know, they might be sold out, but that's okay. It's probably just, sometimes Omegang is a brewery I like, but the beers I've had from them I like the least were their Game of Thrones beers. Don't know why, but it's okay.
All right, so that's good to know. I might have to check that out and see what comes up. But Sioux is definitely one that I was going to bring anyway. So problem is I got to find where it's cold because it's down here at my local one, but it's hot. I guess you could just wait it out. Depends. We'll see.
And waiting is the hardest part, I hear.
Yeah, I know. So let's get on to on the pre-ramble. We wanted to talk a little bit about the Republican health care plan, which of course is just dandy. Wouldn't you agree?
I was trying to look up what it was actually called.
It's called
the greatest health care bill ever, I think is what they officially call it, and under the name of the bill.
No, actually, let's go ahead and debunk that now. That's bingo making.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I'm debunked. Is it?
It's actually a separate bill that was proposed some other time, but that's not the actual name of it. The actual name is prosaically enough, it's American Health Care Act, I think. So that was a bill that was introduced, but it was introduced by.
So instead of the ACA, we have like the AHCA?
Basically, yeah. Which is indicative of the kind of shit they're trying to pull. What they're trying to do is they're trying to tweak it some and then make it sound like it was their fucking idea, basically. So
I would just take Obamacare, just call it Trump Care or Ryan Care, and there you go.
Yeah.
And then add the firing squad for anybody who says the word abortion, provision, and then you're covered.
Yeah, I looked up on NPR because I was trying to look at an overview of what's actually changing. And strangely enough, apparently they say there's going to be 3 different rollouts, I guess. I don't know. First of all, let me go ahead. The abortion thing, of course, is going to be one of the main things. That's not going to be one of the main things. Belching is not covered, I don't think. In fact, if you belch in front of Trump, he will probably just smack you upside the head.
Try to mute burps, but had a few. So the good thing is you edit, right?
Oh, no. No. Not shit like that. No, sir.
Well, anytime I listen to a podcast and somebody says, hey, you're going to edit that out later, that's when it's in and it's extra good.
Yeah. I don't edit as much as I did on the other one. So, because it's just a pain in the ass. And plus it sounds more organic if you don't. So, but anyway, one of the big things is now, like I said, there's going to be apparently 3 different rollouts of different. They're doing it in pieces, I guess, is what I could say. But the abortion coverage thing, now, of course, we all know under the Hyde Amendment that federal funds cannot go to abortion coverage, any abortion coverage, right? So Obamacare basically said that you can have it. You can use Obamacare funds for that purpose, but only if you have, must follow particular administrative requirements to ensure that no federal funds go toward abortion. So you can do it, but you just got to be careful about it. Under this new plan, you can't use any of the tax credits towards abortion coverage. And you also can't use Medicaid towards it, which means guess who gets hit the hardest? Poor women, of course. The people who would need it the most. So abortion's the big thing, right? And then the next big thing that's the main thing right now is the abortion coverage and the Planned Parenthood funding. It's defunding Planned Parenthood, basically.
It's almost at this point that there should be a big people should work together to create something new that replaces Planned Parenthood because it's become a boogeyman. It's like, remember Acorn? Remember when that was a thing and it got destroyed by lies? I mean, half the people who are talking shit about Planned Parenthood are saying it's like 90% abortions, not the case. Plus, abortion is legal. It's a legal procedure in this country. And it's a procedure that is really necessary. And just the aspect of it that you just have to focus on is the pro-choice people want people to have the choice to have an abortion. When people talk about, I kept my kid and I have an abortion, I made the choice to keep my kid. But if you're pro-life, it's off the board no matter what. Baby could be dead inside the woman. And it's like, no, you're going to term, which it's kind of like that in, I don't know if it's totally like that in Ireland.
Ireland actually just, did it go through? Gay marriage went through. But abortion,
they're trying to, because, I think making abortion totally legal is part of their constitution. They're trying to pass a law that would change that.
That's one of the big things I don't like about Ireland. It's almost like a Catholic theocracy.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it is, but I don't know. I think it's probably a lot like England in that England has its national church, but nobody really goes to it.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit.
Because it's Christianity light. It's like, what if America became a theocracy, it would be some version. It would probably be Mormonism that would be like the official. It'd be a Pepsi Light, watered down version of Christianity that no one actually believes in, but it'd be like, yeah, we all agree that because it's in the Constitution. But we'll see.
We'll see.
Interesting times.
Yeah, what do you think about the whole effort by the Republicans to try to replace this health care? Well, this is a dumb question probably, but do you think it's a worthwhile effort, or is it all bullshit?
I don't even know why they're trying to do any marketing, trying to sell it, because they suck at that side of it. Although oddly, they can talk people into voting for them. I guess they're better at fear. Like they've been so good at being negative over the past 8+ years, maybe 30, that they don't even know how to govern. It seems like they don't really understand how it works. It's like, oh, this Obamacare thing is a disaster. Let's replace it by something that pretty much starts as Obamacare, and then we make changes to it. We basically siphon all the extra money to rich people and let poor people die, and they'll still vote for us somehow. I mean, it's like they made a big deal about how the ACA was like this giant thing, and this new bill was a lot smaller. And like, why does that matter? I mean, obviously, if Trump is president now, size matters, right? I don't know. It's just the way that government is going, how they're trying to be as untransparent as possible and like turn off cameras in Congress and try to restrict voting and do the gerrymandering type stuff. It seems like they're not really fans of our current form of government. And as the kind of real president Steve Bannon is, he kind of wants to dismantle it, and they seem to be going along with it. It's interesting to see because Trump was seen as the enemy, and I think they're going to go along with him, the Republican power base, until they decide they're done with him, and then I'll try to move on and go to Pence. But I don't know. I don't think I know 2 guys have been impeached in the history of this country. I don't think they've actually been voted out of office. It was Clinton and Andrew Johnson. Like, he was the guy after
Lincoln. He was his vice president.
But it takes a lot. Like, you have to be voted out. I think it's like 2/3. So you have to really. And Trump, we've seen he's Teflon Trump. Like, nothing sticks to him.
Oh, they hate him.
It's an odd phenomenon. People hate him. He can't die. He's like Bowser in Mario Brothers, man. He keeps coming back every time there's a new game. I don't know.
That's a good analogy, actually.
My first.
Bullshit. The establishment Republicans hate him. They absolutely despise his ass. They're trying to find any way to get rid of his ass, trust me. Hell, the Koch brothers even don't like his ass.
It's like, we make the joke, the whole Bill Maher, sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. We're finding out this week that Paul Ryan is possibly a total idiot, because he had that speech where he's like, no holy book says you can have sex and not have kids and not have consequences. And I'm like, okay, buddy, let me know how many times you had sex with your wife and how many kids you have, because apparently that has to be like close to a 1-to-1 ratio according to your holy book. It's not? Huh. What a surprise. I don't know. Ugh.
It's like that Monty Python skit, every sperm is sacred, or whatever. Every sperm is sacred.
I mean, I made this, awful joke on, I was on the Free Thought Prophet about if they're going to make women have to bury, miscarriages and abortions, or we're going to have to take our, tissues out every time we masturbate and like bury them in the backyard and have a funeral service. I mean,
Awesome.
Oh, I forgot we're guys. We're immune to that.
Yeah, it's always funny how these old white dudes are always trying to dictate what women can do with their own bodies. I just love the irony there.
I mean, we are white guys, so we're part of the problem, but yeah. I think bearded guys actually are more part of the problem.
Well, you can go fuck yourself. There's Zach. Just letting you know.
I can't grow facial hair. I tried to grow a beard. I do another show, and my co-host said that I looked like a child predator with a beard, so I can't pull it off.
I've been told that, but
it didn't stop me.
Fuck it.
A couple restraining orders. Essentially, it's all right.
So I guess the consensus, or at least between us two, is that this is a bad idea and probably won't be any better. In fact, it'll be a lot worse, especially for poor women, wouldn't you say?
Sounds like a lot of conservatives are against it, and a lot of official, medical boards are against it, and the insurance companies are probably okay with it because it's all about the, Benjamins at this point.
Oh, they don't give a fuck, yeah. Especially when, Cigna pulled out because they weren't making enough money. So,
I mean, people get pissed when you use the Bernie Sanders line that healthcare is a right. Like, I've had friends of mine who are, obviously pro-life, and it's like, it should be like car insurance. Car insurance, you can't really get it if you've had a bunch of accidents. It's like, so you basically die if you have a pre-existing condition, and you're okay with that, right? Okay, you're the compassionate side. I mean, I know it's expensive, but so is having a trillion dollar a year military when we outspend everybody in the world like double. I mean, we can do this. It's going to be getting more expensive as time goes on, but every other major country in the world has a system like this. Making a profit off people living and dying and making decisions based on that.
Pretty sick.
I don't think it's a good way to go. I mean, and then we can talk about trying to get religion, like all these Catholic-owned hospitals. Isn't it like St. Thomas in Tennessee? Like you see billboards on the way there, and you're like, they're showing like a cross, and they're a hospital.
Oh, now there's a Bible verse on there.
The way that that combination works.
Yeah, there's a Bible verse. Is their big thing now.
Ooh.
There's a Bible verse as their slogan. Nothing shall be impossible. Apparently, something is possible to fucking break down the wall between church and state. But anyway, that's a whole different story. Let's not get too far into that. Let's go ahead and pre-ramble in because we could go on forever. But again, I want to remind people that NaNoCon is coming up next weekend. A lot of cool people going to be there. Matt Dillahunty, Mandisa Thomas, Callie Wright, JT Eberhardt, etc., as well as myself on a podcast panel. Get excited. Get really excited. But anyway, just stay tuned and we'll have more of the Zachster on the palaver.
Yo.
We, the nuns, the non-religious, unaffiliated, atheists, agnostics, humanists, and heathens, are statistically the fastest growing group in the nation. But here in the Bible Belt, you'd never know it. Are you fine without faith? Are you good without a God? If you're questioning your beliefs or you're happily religion-free, join us in March for NaNoCon. NaNoCon, the Nashville Nuns Convention, is a one-day secular extravaganza. Last year, NaNoCon drew over 400 participants for an affordable full day of speakers, workshops, vendors, music, food, and fun. The 2017 NaNoCon is stepping it up with the brilliant Matt Dillahunty as keynote speaker. We are building an inclusive community of thinking people, just like you, so be there. St. Patrick's Day weekend, Saturday, March 18th. Learn more and get tickets online at www.nanocon.info. Let's get this party started.
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old Atheist Show format? Cellar Door Skeptics Podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the cellar door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
Welcome to another edition of the Palaver here on the Podunk Polymath Podcast. Of course, you already know who it is because he was on the pre-ramble, but let me go ahead and do a little introduction anyway. He does the Zachrilege Cast, which is also now a podcast, I believe. He interviews the well-known people from the atheist/skeptical community, and he also likes to drink beer. He also does another podcast, which I can't remember off the top of my head right this second, but he'll tell me. So I reintroduce to you Zach Law. Zach, how's it going again?
It's going great. I've officially transitioned to the Brooklyn Black Chocolate Stout, and I think I like that one better than the Storm King. I might bring that to Nashville and, pass that on, because the more bitter stuff, there's just so much great craft beer out there that if you're like, I'm not sure if I like the style, go find something else. You'll find about 500 versions of it out there.
Yeah, basically that's what I do. I stick to porters and stouts mostly. But what is that other podcast? Because I know you Going for Two. Is that the name of it? Yeah,
it's Going for Two. Although I'm not sure if it's officially a podcast because my co-host Sharona, who does her own other podcast, has I think like a Spreaker connection. So it's actually on Spreaker, but it isn't on iTunes. Like we're the only podcast. We don't actually number our show. We just do a show every week because we both met each other. We were Tennessee Titans fans, and we talked about the Titans, and then the Titans were so terrible. We're like, we need to talk about something else. So we talk about football, and then occasionally we talk about the intersection between, football and political stuff. Really, it's an excuse, like my Zachrilege Cast, to, drink beer and talk about football, and Zachrilege Cast is an excuse to drink beer and let interesting people talk while I ask them sometimes embarrassing questions.
Okay. So you can shut up now because I'm interviewing you, not the other way around. It's my turn, sir. It's my turn. Okay?
It's deserved. It's earned.
It's earned. So, Zach, why? Why did you start the Zachrilege Cast?
Well, I've never been there. A lot of people I've talked to are people who were raised in a religious environment and then kind of found their way out, like dug their way out. I never was raised religious. I never really thought about it. And then I got into my 20s and 30s and I'm like, I think I'm an atheist. And I used to listen to the Adam Carolla show when he actually had a radio show every day. And he went on this rant about stupid religious people. And I was like, hell yeah. And then I started searching for atheist podcasts and I found the Atheist Experience. And I found Ask an Atheist and I found a lot of the shows that I listen to now and that I've interviewed people from. And I remember listening to Cash, Atheist on Air, talk about you should do a podcast. And so I went to a local freethinker group, and a guy told me about a show called Barroom Atheist. So I started listening to it, and Bill and Susie, when Susie got sick, Bill was looking for guest bartenders. So I said, hey, sign me up. So one night I got liquored up and read Psalms 30 through 60 and talked to them about it. And then with the help of Bobby Carey of No Religion Required, he was like, you can do a show. And because I'd already done a show, all I had to do was do a Google Hangout, burn the audio, and turn it into an iTunes show. And I had been doing, interviews on the fantasy football side for a while. And I was like, well, I can do interviews. Initially, the idea of Zachrilege Cast was I was going to talk about podcasts. And I told Bobby, I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a show about No Religion Required. And he's like, well, I'll talk to you. So I'm like, okay. And so it was a lot more interesting, me talking to myself as opposed to me talking to, atheist podcasters and such. So Bobby got in the show. And for the first few episodes, I did about 30 minutes. And now I do about an hour and occasionally a little bit longer. But basically once a week, I wish I was as scheduled as the rest of the people seem to be. And they always do their show on the same night and they always record. And I'm just like, whenever my guests can be on. I interviewed Callie Wright a few weeks ago at 9 a.m. I didn't have any beers that day, by the way. But it was whenever my guests were available. And ironically, I had I started the show about 2 years ago. And I had a period of unemployment that year. So I had time during the day to do interviews occasionally. So it allowed me, some guests couldn't do nights. So I was able to do that. But I'm on, episode 86. Next week will be 87. Cass Midgley. Everyone's Agnostic will be my guest because I'm doing a little, focus on Nashville and NaNoCon leading up to next weekend's show. But
damn it.
Yeah, basically What?
I got to get Cass on. Fuck, I keep meaning to do that anyway. You'd think
And that's the thing, people like Chris get, the guests before me, and I'm like, well, I got to listen to that, and I got to not ask them the same questions if I can.
Well, you'd think I'd get like the more popular guy in Nashville on my goddamn show, but whatever.
I'll say hi for you.
Fuck you. I've seen it plenty of times in person, so kiss my ass.
Hey, you got me beat there.
So who was your first episode was Bobby? Is that who it was?
Yeah, Bobby was number one. It was funny because Ashley was actually in school at the time, so Bobby said she wasn't going to be there because I was like, well, I'll talk to both of you. And then she was there, and it was a little awkward because I had basically set up to interview him. So I had her on, I think, episode like 15, and I think considering the two of them kind of bicker and go back and forth, I was like, yeah, I'll interview them separately. I mean, when I had Bill and Susie on, I had them both at the same time. And it can get, I don't know if you've done this before, but if you have multiple guests on, it can get a little bit hard to traffic control. But you do the best you can. It's as George Michael used to say, it's best one-on-one when it comes to interviewing.
You are so clever, and that's why I love you so much, Zach. And I know what you're saying.
That.
Yeah,
it's the beer talking, but I'm with you.
Yeah, because I had the polyamory episode. I had 4 people on, I think it was. So yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying, especially if you have one person that's more talkative than the other.
Well, there was one week I couldn't get a guest, and this was like episode 11, and I just invited people from like a secret atheist Facebook group, and we had like 5 or 6 people, and the problem was they wanted to keep talking, and I think we ended up going for like 2.5, 3 hours, and I actually stopped the recording at a certain point just because it was too much. I mean, I appreciate the show, like the original, No Religion Required when they used to do 3 hours, or Dogma Debate when they did 3 hours. Some weeks it was interesting enough to go through it, but when you want to listen to all these shows, and I get to become, friends with people I do shows with, and I feel bad to like, sorry, I haven't listened to your show for a while, because there are a lot of shows out there, but that's also good because then I have more guests.
Yeah, that's why I can't.
We'll never run out.
That's why I don't listen to that anymore. No, it's just too long. I don't have that kind of time. Let's just be honest with you.
They shortened it. I mean, they do like an hour and a half now, but.
Oh, really?
I don't. Occasionally, even shows I try to listen to every week, it's like, well, who's the guest this week, or what are they talking about this week? Okay, maybe I can pass on. Plus, if you're doing a show, I'm interviewing Cass. Occasionally, I interview somebody who's pretty new. Like, when I interviewed you, you had, 15 episodes. So I listened to about half of them. But like someone like Cass, who has 140 episodes, or Scathing Atheist that has, I actually listened to, I think, the first and the second Scathing Atheist show. And that can be fun to listen to a show that's been on the air for like years, just to see how was it the first episode versus now, like what's changed? Because everybody, changes over time doing a show, even though, I really haven't. But, the interview format seems to, work.
Yeah. So your first was Bobby Carey. Do you remember? I mean, okay. So what episode are you on now?
Well, this week is 86 and next week's 87. Now, when I wouldn't have a guest early on, I would actually just talk by myself. I did 3 or 4 of those. And then I was like, no, those shows don't really work. I mean, I would do notes and kind of create, but it's better when I'm talking to somebody else. So if I don't have a guest, I usually just say, all right, this week we're just going to take a break and move on to the next. Because there were, I think December, I basically took the month off, and I started in January. And I took a week off, and then I interviewed the new Promoting Secular Feminist crew, and I interviewed you the next day. So I did 2 interviews in 2 days, and that was covering 2 weeks. So
yeah, it's always good.
I try to average one a week. That's the best I can do.
I've been trying to keep at least one in the sack. That's a bad term. One in the can. I don't know where that.
Save those lines for the pickup lines.
That's right. Hey, baby, nice pants. They would look good on my floor. But anyway, yeah, I'll be here all night. So do you have a specific? Let me rephrase that. Do you have favorite interviews that you've done? I know they're like children, and they're all precious to you. But is there certain ones that stand out to you?
Well, it's convenient that I have my spreadsheet up with all my interviews recorded. Now Now, I drink beer during my show, and usually I get through 2. Now, the only people who have been able to drink more than me during a show is the Waiting for Wrath crew, and they're out of Wyoming. And actually, I only got to interview 2 of them, so I need to get the full set, so I need to get them back on. I have to say, the Scathing Atheist, just because they're such a big show, and it took such a long time to... I mean, I just sent an email to Noah, basically, and it took a couple months for him to respond, and I, threw the Farnsworth quote in there and got him on, and that was kind of fun. And they actually want to be on my football show because they do that fantasy football podcast. Although I recall them saying they might invite me into the Atheist Fantasy League, and that didn't happen. That's probably why Noah won this league, because they didn't, invite me and all that. Sure. But really, it's been fun. I mean, like episode 8, sometimes it's fun to talk to people who've done 100 interviews because they're prepared for anything. But occasionally having, when I had Dr. Jill on episode 8, she's involved in the Secular Therapist Project, and at the time she was the only Georgia member of the Secular Therapist Project to actually talk to a real therapist who hadn't been on other shows about, the kind of the rural Indiana situation she dealt with when she was just getting started. Was a lot of fun, and I don't know, it's just been cool to talk to a kind of wide group. Grace Alexander, I talked to her episode 74. I met her at a local atheist group, and she and her wife moved to Uruguay like a couple years ago. And because of the whole Trump situation, she could probably start a company getting people to move out of the country and move to Uruguay. Like, what is it like to live in a different country? Apparently peanut butter is really expensive, but otherwise it's relatively cheap to live down there. Okay. But it's fun to... I haven't done a ton of international interviews. I talked to John of the Free Thought Prophet in Ireland. I've done a couple interviews out of England, but it's kind of a worldwide, group, and it's fun to, to spread it out and just get different people and different experiences.
Now, you had a certain gentleman on, I believe it was episode 9, or is there thereabouts. He seemed to have a big fucking beard. He was in his car. Who was this particular gentleman?
Well, there was this character named Seethin' Heathen, but he couldn't hold his liquor, so I don't know if he got shelved or what happened. But so I met Seethin' Heathen at a Greek restaurant, and he had a bunch of rice, and then I interviewed him in a car, and then the second time I interviewed him, he was this guy named Chris Watson, and he was in his bed, and now I'm in his bed again, which I don't know if that means we're married or like living together in some states.
Yeah,
there's definitely some sin involved, but yeah, that's the only interview I've ever done with somebody in their car. Was when we chatted. Episode 9, which was no, I don't have the date there. Sorry, 2 years ago, approximately. It was before, because Chris will never let me forget the fact that I got a podcaster badge at ReasonCon, and I didn't actually technically have a podcast yet.
Trust me. That's nothing compared to the shit I had to live down what I did there. Trust me on that. And I'm sure I'll never... God damn, it's been 2 years and people are still bringing that fucking shit up. But hey, whatever. Eventually you got to move on, right? And that was the part of the reason I started this podcast. Because, man, fuck you. I'm like a butterfly out of the chrysalis, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, that's what I like about your show is you talk about... Like, you kind of focus on subjects each week. I usually just talk to a person and get their kind of story, but there isn't, like, hey, we're going to talk about, I mean, when I had like Amber Geisendler, she was talking about adoption, that kind of stuff. Some people have a certain focus, but most people it's like, hey, let's find out your journey and see where you've gone. Although I do remember, and this happens with podcasts, that I was like, I've done 2 interviews in a row, and I don't think we've really talked about atheism at all. Because eventually you're like, you know what atheism is? It just means we don't believe God exists. We got to find something else after that, right? It's going to get really boring if that's all we talk about.
Exactly. And I think that's why I try to do this podcast, concentrating more on social justice issues. But let's stop talking about me. Let's talk about you. So, Scathing Atheist, God damn it, dude. Try to be professional, okay? God damn, this is a professional podcast. Anyway.
I hit the mute button on my microphone. Apparently, my computer's picking it up. Sorry. when I do my show, if I'm yawning, if I'm burping, if I'm doing any kind of noise at all, if my cat's meowing at me, I hit the mute button. So for any latent burp, maybe you can count the number of burps, and if anybody can tell me the number of burps I do during the show, I'll give you one of my drink tickets at Reason Gone. Okay, that'll make up for it. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Do you have any interviews that you're not terribly fond of, even though, like I said, they're all your children, so maybe you're not so keen on saying, but perhaps you could say less good than some of the other ones.
Less good? Other than number 9, I don't know. I don't know if I can... Anytime, well, I mean, when I used relatively early on, if it was just me, I would try to write a bit of a script and just talk. And I don't know if those really were that good. There was one week where I interviewed a bunch of people who were in an atheist like Facebook group, but it was just too many people. I mean, it was like 6 or 7 people, and they kept coming in and leaving, and people were talking over each other. And that's I mean, I think it's definitely a skill. Like I would like someday to be like Seth Andrews, because like when he has a group of like 5 people on, he's always like this person, and he's able to like refer to them individually and get each person to talk without talking over each other. And it's pretty solid. I would like to have him on someday. I guess I should actually try to, reach out and see how it's going, because talk about a success story, talk about just smooth pipes,
Okay, you cheated a little bit.
Did I not answer
it?
Yeah,
you cheated.
I don't answer
because I meant one of your guests, okay, not you personally. And I know you don't like to talk about people in a bad way, okay? Unlike me, who doesn't really give a fuck. Well, I sort of do. I give more of a fuck than I used to. If you're not comfortable answering the question, sir, you can say so.
Well, the only person I ever interviewed who ended up saying bad things about me, and I don't know why it happened, was Reese, who I interviewed, number 47, Nightmare Fuel podcast. Like, he did a couple of, somebody like Steve Shives, like 50 people have done negative YouTube videos about him. This guy did like a couple of negative videos about me, and I just didn't know why, and it was so bizarre. It was like me just reaching like my hand out a little bit into the YouTube world and getting like shocked and going, okay, maybe this isn't for me. So that was kind of awkward, but ultimately I decided to kind of ignore it, and that was kind of the end of it.
I can understand that. Like I said, I've known you for a couple of years, and I know how you operate, and you're just generally a nice guy. So, and you don't like to talk badly about anybody.
I mean, if it goes badly, it's because I probably prepared poorly, or because we had bad connection. I mean, occasionally we've had, because we're on Google Hangouts, occasionally it just doesn't work very well. I know I've talked to a few avatars, people who didn't want to actually show their real face, and maybe that was a negative. But I know it actually kind of worked out, because when I did Promoting Secular Feminism a few weeks ago, they each had avatars, but they were all created by people in the show, so they kind of were their show personalities. And they all kind of play characters. They're not actually themselves on that show.
Technical difficulties aside, and this gentleman that you speak of, which apparently is not much of a gentleman, most of your interviews have gone pretty well. I've listened to some of them, and one thing I've noticed about you is that, like I said, you're very diplomatic, and I'm sure you'd make a good addition to the diplomatic corps. Of course, in this State Department, I don't know how well you do, considering he's fired all the senior members. So that's one of the things, like I said, I like about your show, is you bring out things in people I think that generally wouldn't come out, simply because people get defensive if you get challenged them too much on certain things, especially if they're sacred cows. And you seem to kind of gloss over that a little bit and let them just say their piece. And I think sometimes if you let somebody hang on their own rope, you don't, just coax them a little bit, and they'll hang themselves in their own petard, basically. So hoist themselves in their own petard.
I can't say in the history of the show, like, I've interviewed someone that I've been an enemy against, or I've have had specific issues with. I mean, the one weird crossover episode I had was when I interviewed Matt Riddle, who's a pastor, but I also know him from the fantasy football world. So it's like, hey, my worlds collided. And we had a chat. I don't think we got I think I asked him if he had read the Bible, and he said he hadn't read the whole thing. I'm like, oh, you're a pastor and you haven't read the Bible, that kind of thing. But I feel like we probably could follow up on that. But I think that's one of two believers that I've had on the show the whole time. I mean, the other was the couple that was on that, the guy was an ex-Mormon and the wife was still a Mormon. And they actually stopped doing that show. And at Naomi O'Neill, I forget what their show was actually called. But they actually stopped doing a show. I mean, that's one thing that can be awkward is like you do an interview with somebody and then the show ends. You're like, wait, did I have anything to do with that? Or what happened there?
It was you. It was all you.
Or shows break up. Like I interviewed Zandy Anderson, and I think the last week before she changed her name, she was on my show. So I actually have her, quote unquote dead name on my show because that's just the time where I happened to interview her.
Yeah, she actually used to have a podcast a long time ago. Well, not long. Super long.
I believe she's one of the, secret people on promoting secular feminism.
Really, dude? You're going to give that away? Really?
I won't make an actual connection to a character, although I think you could probably guess if you're on it. I know voices. I'm sorry.
Well, okay. Just as long as you don't say which one, I guess that's okay. We'll let that slide a little bit.
There are a bunch of co-hosts on the show. They're like 12, so good luck with that.
Well, they're correspondents, technically.
Correspondents, uh-huh.
Well, that's what she said.
You don't be pissed because I'm a member of the Penis Gallery and you aren't.
They don't even have the Penis Gallery anymore.
I'm a Penis Gallery emeritus. It's the worst thing I've said in the show. No, it's not. It is for now.
You're a funny guy. Did I ever tell you that? Anyway.
To a level.
What about your personal views? Obviously you have personal views. What's your kind of views on this whole thing? I mean, we talk about your guests that you have on, but you never really say much about you as your personal predilections or whatever.
I don't know. You get into the atheist community and you get this like happy, slappy feeling where like everybody gets along, we're all friends, and then you see that there are these feuds that happen, and like I said, there are co-hosts that I've had on my show, and then like 2 weeks later they're like, oh, we hate each other and we're not doing the show anymore. I'm like, what happened? And these disagreements happen, the punching a Nazi thing where everybody gets all pissed, or the new atheists thing. And yeah, there are definitely fractures within the group, but at the same time, we're human beings. We're not going to get along 100%. You have to sometimes pick your battles and decide, do I follow this person? Am I going to just throw a person away because I disagree with them on one subject? And I try not to do that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just on the sidelines kind of watching the show and eating popcorn and trying to have a good time with it.
But I mean, your personal views. I mean, I assume you're an atheist. Otherwise, you wouldn't be interviewing atheists.
Yeah, I'm an atheist. I can't say that I'm fully out. I mean, after ReasonCon, I called my mom and I told her I was an atheist, and she said she still loves me. And I haven't talked about it with my parents. They're both Catholics. They go to a kind of liberal Catholic church. My wife's I'd say she's a believer, and that's caused some issues occasionally in our relationship. There aren't as many of us. I mean, there might be more than you think, but there aren't that many, and I don't know. Trying to amplify the voices of the people out there is what I like to do. And I mean, there are times where you get frustrated with it, with people not getting along and people being what seems like lifelong friends, and then like they have one disagreement and it's done. That can be frustrating, but this is just, it's just kind of humanity.
Exactly. People just don't get along. And I think you're right about the rifts in the community. There seems to be sort of a rift right now between the SJW types, and I guess you could say the anti-SJW types, to put it mild. There seems to be a bit of a split there, and I'm sure you've seen it, and I'm sure you've interviewed people from both sides of that divide. And has it struck you as being particularly virulent? I mean, are they vehement in their views, or I mean?
Well, all things for people to get pissed about SJWs. And I mean, obviously it's an ironic title that people give each other. I call myself like a self-loathing SJW just because I think when you say you're an SJW, that means you actually care about humanity and care about people's feelings and care about people that have experiences different from you, that you want everybody to be equal and to be happy and to be self-fulfilled. And the people who are against that, they seem to be against kind of pedantic. I call it the age of pedantic. Like they're against feminists, but they're really just against one person who said one stupid thing, or they're against a group because of one thing one person has done. And there's a bit of a labeling issue we have. Like when people use the term ACW, they're trying to say something negative about somebody. But then there are other people who go, I'll take that. Like I don't mind using that term for myself because I think that kind of applies, and maybe it applies in a negative way because I do a podcast which is online and X number of people a week listen to it, and I occasionally put my feelings out on social media because I have 2 separate Twitter accounts, and one is the religion one and one is the sports one and the regular one.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I have Zach_Law is my mainstream one, I guess. And I just found occasionally a couple of times on my normal Twitter account, I got into arguments with people about religion, and I found out maybe I should have a separate account for that. So Zachrilege was just a term a friend of mine, we were out to eat, and he's like, Zachrilege. And that just stuck with me. And I'm like, when I started, I wanted to do a podcast, I'm like, that's a good title. So that's kind of how that came up. So it started as a Twitter account, and it's obviously a lot less popular than my regular Twitter account because that one talks about beer and football mostly. And this one talks about religion, so which one's going to be more popular. You know where we are. We're in the South, y'all. It's all about the footballs.
Yeah, I don't want to argue that point.
Although most people seem to like beers that seem to indicate that you don't like beer.
No.
Because you drink Bud Light. You really don't like beer.
No, that's horrific. And regular Bud's even worse. Oh, Jesus, God help me.
Well, the funny thing is my cousin, we were out, my wife and my cousin, and my cousin was like, do you want a beer? And my wife was like, eh. And he's like, do you drink Bud Light? And she was like, no. I was like, what's your last name, Law? Well, then you drink Bud Light. And I was like, oh no.
What does that even mean? What's your last name?
He's a big fan of Bud Light and Maker's Mark.
God.
I should try to introduce him to better beers. He lives in Houston. They got good beers there. At a certain point in your life, you have to decide whether you like beer or not. And trust me, if you do like beer even a little bit, you're gonna find so much good stuff that you'll like. You'll be happy. And if you're an atheist and you want to listen to podcasts, you have so many choices. You will find the show for you. And maybe my show's for you, or maybe Podunk's more your style. That's fine. I'll just keep burping openly. Don't worry, he's not going to erase the burps in post. I know.
Nope.
I can see that right now.
I told you, man. I'm not doing all that fucking editing. It's too much effort.
Right now you're thinking, man, it could be talking about the Apocrypha. That'd be exciting.
Hey, now look, it's fun when you're drinking. Trust me, because I was on there last time. It was pretty fun. Because you get to laugh at all the absurdity. And trust me, the Bible and its addendums are full of absurdity. So
nobody knows. Not a lot of people know that those things are out there. We were out tonight, and one of my wife's friends is a churchgoer, and she made a comment tonight about being a secular humanist. She would want to just walk into the ocean and not stop. And I didn't really challenge it, but I was like, well, if that's the way you feel about secular humanism, you probably should stay a Christian. No, the people who say me being a Christian is the only thing that keeps me from murdering and raping and doing horrible things. I'm like, stay a Christian. Probably good for all of us. If you think that's what keeps you being a good person, then, okay.
That frightens the shit out of me, dude. I mean, really? That's the only thing that fucking keeps you from being a fucking...
I don't know.
What the hell? Maybe you need to go to therapy.
You can't even go lower than, quarter inch of topsoil deep to get past that. But that's what people say. So you're just like, all right, I'm going to take you at face value.
Scared. I mean, that's one of those things where I've never understood that. I've never understood the whole thing where you need some sort of religion or some sort of philosophy that tells you what's good from bad. I mean, if you can't decide that for yourself, I'm sorry, but you got some issues. I'm just saying, or you're not very self-aware, I guess, in a lot of ways. That's just me. I mean, everybody's got their own thing. That's fine. So Zach, you've been doing this show for a while. You have a podcast now that kind of, it's kind of.
Hey, it was a podcast like 2 weeks after ReasonCon 2015. That was whenever iTunes, you have to submit your first however many episodes to iTunes. I think I actually was like 12 or 13 in. And then they accept you and you're like, hey, you're a podcaster. So, I've been there for a while. It's a couple of years.
Yeah. So it's been a while, but of course you don't have the video goodness of seeing your sexy face, of course,
No, you do. You can go to YouTube. I still record on YouTube every week because I am too lazy to even do the Skype version where I just burn the audio. So because my co-host on the Going for Two show said, hey, if you go to this site and you do a Google Hangout live, you just take the link, it makes it into an MP3, and boom, I post that to iTunes. So that's my deep. That's how I do it. So my show starts YouTube and then goes, iTunes. I believe Google Play. I need to check because I actually signed up for Google Play. I want to make sure it actually is on there. Stitcher. I didn't do Spreaker because that seemed to cost extra. So yeah.
Yeah, there's no point.
There are certain limits to cost. Like I do Podbean and I don't even have a website still. I just do a Facebook page. I probably should try to get Zachrilege.com, but then I'd have to do more work. That just sounds like not fun. I don't know, do you have PodUnkPolymath.com? I think you do. I have to look.
Yeah.
Research you as much as I should have, huh?
Yeah, the PodUnkPolymath.com. Go ahead and get that right now.
I should have given you extreme vetting.
You probably should have, yeah. As much vetting as some of the Trump administration got, but anyway.
Oh, that's just the reality. You go, man, pinch me or something. I'm in this weird nightmare. Nope, this is it. This is what's going on.
Yep, exactly. It does scare. It does scare. So it scares the shit out of me, to be perfectly honest with you.
I mean, they haven't said, hey, we're targeting white males yet, so we're all good. But
oh no,
that's bearded guys could be. I don't think Trump could grow a beard on a bet, so you might be next.
I might be. I'm okay with that. I'm not doing much anyway. I guess not achieving too much in this planet, so I'll be all right. I reckon. So Zach, do you have any plans for the future? Do you have any sort of how you'd like to kind of I don't know, expand the show, or just you're going to keep doing the same shit forever? I mean,
the same shit, but better. That's me.
That's what I meant.
I'm just happy when I I have a guest for next week. Great. Because sometimes it's Tuesday and I go, crap, I don't have a guest yet. And I need to figure that out. And sometimes I'm able to find somebody who's available on short notice, and sometimes I'm not. I don't. There are a lot of shows. I mean, that was the thing about talking to Marissa is like, oh, I have my, 100th episode planned and she's a few episodes behind me. And I'm like, crap, I know I'm going to have a 100th episode in approximately 14 weeks. I guess I need to start planning that because I just have next week's guest available. I mean, when I took a little break and came back, I had a little list of people set up. But after that, I need to get going. But I did that episode where I talked to Gene and Rachel from ReasonCon, and I actually heard from somebody who lives in the area who was going to the conference, and he was an atheist. And I'm like, you want to be on the show? I mean, I think that's kind of what Cass Midgley does on his show is he interviews people, and it doesn't, not necessarily big time podcasters, but just people who have these stories. And that's what I want to tell. I like hearing people's stories of coming out of religion, and then what do you do with your relationship? What do you do with, kids? What do you do with family? What do you do with your day-to-day job stuff that people find out? Is there actually a negative connotation to being openly atheist, which I'm not at this moment? I don't know if there'd be a negative effect for my career if my boss knew I was an atheist and did an atheist podcast. It's possible that there's a negative connotation to this. Pretty easily Googleable search, I'm sure. Well, they'd have to be able to spell Zachrilege, and only I can do that when I'm drunk. So good luck.
So you could keep on having people on to tell their stories. I would think preferably from, our pool of people, but you may go outside every once in a while.
Well, I mean, I once interviewed my dad because he kept kicking my ass in fantasy football when I was doing fantasy football interviews. I could have him on my show because he really, he grew up Catholic and then kind of didn't pay attention to it. And then after I had a bad hospitalization and near-death experience, he and my mom kind of went back to it. And that would be an interesting show, although I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to do that. We'll see. Might be riveting TV. Maybe that'll be my 100th episode. We'll see.
That would definitely be cool. I mean, I could never do that with my dad. I'll say that right now. We don't run on the best terms. My mom, I don't know. She's pretty Christian. So, I mean, she's Christian, but she doesn't put in your face or whatever. She's very laid back. So,
but ultimately, I think we do have to have these conversations, believers and non-believers, because we'll find out we have more in common than we don't. You can pretend you don't have much in common because you believe in this holy book, and we do. I mean, there's certain reasons why you might believe, but you have more history than you don't. I mean, you start with your loved ones. The people I've talked to whose family have cut them off. Talking to Patrick this week, like his ex-wife is an evangelical, and his kids are basically told on a weekly basis that their dad's going to hell. I mean, I'm not coming close to dealing with that situation, but a lot of people are. And I want to get those stories out there because maybe that'll help somebody down the road go, maybe this atheist person who I think is this, baby-eating devil worshiper is actually a normal human being. And we can have a beer together, or we can go watch a sporting event together, or there's something we can do. Because at this point, we're getting a little polarized as a community and as a country, and that's not going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that I've kind of come around to a little bit. I mean, there's liberal religious folk, that we have more in common with than like YouTube atheist types, like the amazing asshole or whatever. Guys like that, they can go straight up fuck themselves. I don't give a fuck about them, But then you have like kind of a liberal type, like Alex Moreski. He, of course, is a pastor in Savannah, and Bobby C knows him pretty well. He's been on lots of shows, I think. He's more of a liberal kind of guy, and he's willing to have those conversations. So I think there's an intersection there between liberal Christians and, kind of the SJ. The secular humanists, I guess, would be a better term for that kind of thing. There is definitely some common ground there I think we can find. And especially now with the Trump era upon us, I think we need all the allies we can get as far as secular humanism in general,
Well, I mean, I'm really, because there's so much negativity out there, just to see that so many people are protesting, and to see that the Georgia, senator, I don't know if he's senator or House of Representative, the guy who was put into the Trump cabinet, who's a total asshole and total, making money off the healthcare industry, now that there's an open seat and there's actually a Democrat in Georgia running for it, and he actually has a shot of winning, gives you hope. And to see that, there's this scientist march and the women's march, and then the women's, day of protest, International Women's Day, it was this week, gives you hope. And maybe it just maybe this is what we needed, was to have this happen. So people wake up and go, oh, this is a democratic process and we all have to be involved for something positive to happen. We have to struggle. I think we've all been we're good, we're fine, nothing's wrong. Nothing bothers us on a daily basis. So now that this is happening, oh crap, we need to actually get involved, and maybe that'll turn things around. And we'll be less SJW-y in a stereotypical way, and we'll be actually helping the process go forward.
Yeah, I think that's very important for us to do that. I mean, we live in scary times right now, to be honest with you, and we all have to, like you said, we probably got more in common than we do not, and so we need to find those commonalities and try to unite on that, because there's a lot of fear, and I think a lot of fear and hate that's been stirred up by this Trump presidency. And keep in mind, it's only been 2 months or something, and it's I think it's going to get worse, but I think we can get through it. It's just the fear of the unknown, I think, is one of the big problems.
Yeah, I mean, fear of the unknown is kind of what got him in there. There's still so many people like, man, I would have voted for him, but I just thought Hillary was a shoo-in, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe you should get her on your show. Hillary.
Yeah, she's got a bunch of free time now, right?
Actually, yes, she does.
Might as well say you're an atheist now. Your political career is over. Didn't the whole rumors about the Democratic Party making her like the 2020? No, that's not happening.
Yeah, what's the point?
It can happen if you want to just olay your way to dumbass round 2. Sure.
So
Al Franken could be interesting, but I don't know. It's so. I'd say it's so far in the future, but Trump's already like running for president in 2020. So this stuff starts early, and the Democratic Party is sometimes like the atheist community. It's a little bit fractured.
Yeah.
It so really wants to just be a centrist kind of Republican light party, and if they want to matter, they got to stop that. Like today.
Yeah, the progressives are trying to make a pull, but they fucked up and didn't vote for Keith Ellison for DNC chair or whatever, and they fucking picked the centrists, so obviously don't care too much. They're going to keep making the same fucking mistakes. So I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen, man? Is there anybody you'd like to have on your show that you haven't had yet?
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to have, thinking atheist like Seth Andrews can say whatever he wants, but he is the thinking atheist. He'd be good. I don't know. It's always just like who I happen to kind of run into. It's like, oh, we're going to Nashville next weekend, and Cass does a show, and he's out of Nashville, so let me talk to him. It kind of works out that way. And maybe I don't have that big of an ego, so I'm like, I'm not going to reach for the super big names, and occasionally I get those, but sometimes it's just an interesting story. I mean, talking to people who have never been on another show can be fun, and then talking to people who've done 400 interviews. I mean, Marissa was on 7 podcasts a week. She talked to me. So I was like, I got to at least ask one question. Nobody else has answered. And I might as well ask the same questions because, she's very prepared and good. And the book is quite good. And I'm glad that Marissa's having all the success because there are definitely some day-to-day struggles that I can't even fathom that she's going through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's going through some shit that I don't think any of us could imagine. I mean, if you just read her book, you can see some of those struggles for yourself. PC Lie. What's the subtitle again?
Right over here, yeah. I got the signed the double sign. You can get a secret double signed copy if you get an autographed copy. Dude, come on.
Why American Voters Decided We Don't Matter.
Yeah.
I don't matter. I think it is.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've interviewed, I think, 4 trans people during my show, and they are each on a different kind of journey and a different kind of spectrum, but each of their stories makes me think like I am at like when I went downstairs at ReasonCon wearing an atheist t-shirt, I felt kind of scared because I didn't know what people would say, but that's like 1/10000000% of what just getting out of the house is like if you're trans in America, and going to the bathroom. I mean, just doing normal stuff.
Yeah,
it has to just add up. I mean, the stress level alone has to be crazy, and it's so cool to hear that Callie and Celis are they're getting surgery in July, and some people they aren't getting surgery. Some people aren't taking stuff, and they aren't taking testosterone, things like that. Some people are just that's who they are, and it's to see people who think differently than you, and to try to kind of get in their head for a second, and then hear their story and to share it with people is something that I feel like is a privilege. I'm glad that I'm able to do that every week. So when I'm like, this doesn't matter and nobody listens and whatever, and then you think about getting somebody's story out there, you want to do that. And you feel compelled to tell these stories.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's one of the reasons I started the podcast, because I wanted to get stories out there that I don't generally hear on other podcasts of the atheist/skeptical nature, I guess you could say. And that's one of the prime movers of why I try to talk to people or hit subjects and talk to people that, that a lot of it is just I want to ask questions, and I really want to know for myself, because I'm curious about these things. I want to try to have people on and talk about these subjects they know a hell of a lot more than I do about those things that I want to discuss. So, and I think that having different people on like that kind of, I get the same vibe that you just kind of want to learn different things from different people because everybody has their own story, you know.
I mean, occasionally, you know, you have to do the interview thing where you know the answer to the question you're going to ask, but occasionally you don't. And then the few times, you know, I've been on a few shows being asked questions, and it's like, oh yeah, you got to like, you know, think on your feet and try to be entertaining at the same time. And people on my show have been pretty good at it, so I'm glad that's happened.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's important for us to get. I think it's another thing. People just don't realize, you know, they think they're not significant and they, you know, their voice doesn't matter. But I mean, you never know when one person is going to be, their mind has changed or, you know, something's going to happen that they listen to your show and they like decide to go to a different path or whatever. And if you can just affect, even though it sounds a little bit pretentious, I guess, but if you can change one person's mind about doing something destructive, I mean, it makes it all worthwhile, at least to me. I mean,
well, atheism is still a dirty word in this country, and there are too many people I've talked to that haven't gotten out of their teens and like they've never heard of an atheist, or when they think they are one, they just don't think there's anybody else around them. And I made the comment on the last show I was on that, like, I live in Atlanta. We have about 6 million people. And if we go low end 2% atheists, that's 120,000 atheists. Maybe we can band together and do something positive. So we're out there and we need to connect just so we can have our safe space and talk to each other and just go, oh, this isn't that weird. It's fine.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. And of course they say it's like herding cats, but hell, I mean, if you have a good organization, you have a good, Black Non-Believers, Mandisa Thomas, who's going to be at NaNoCon 2017, she has managed to, spread to other cities. So the potential is there. You know, if you're a good organizer and you can get your voice out, especially with the internet nowadays, you can reach people that you previously couldn't even dream of. So I think it's possible. We just have to have people who are motivated and who know how to organize and know how to talk to people, you know, try to get the word out. So,
yeah, I think Black Non-Believers, like, there's a segment on the CBS Sunday morning show talking about it, and she was on. Like, that was pretty cool that they got that kind of notification. Notoriety, notice something, note a beer. Anyway, yeah, I talk good. I talk English good.
You're a funny guy, Zach. I'll kill you last.
Kill me last. I'm going to attempt to hand over a quality beverage to you. Maybe next Friday, maybe next Saturday. I'll try to remember.
I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. But if they're going to be, the speakers are going to be there, then it's going to be hard for me to resist it, so I can get one-on-one time and maybe do a little mini interview or something. I don't know. Especially,
I don't have any. I know Bobby and Bill from Burn Atheist. Like, they actually had like recording equipment that they took with them on the road.
No, I don't use my phone.
Oh,
the phone's actually decent. It's a decent record. The microphone is not bad. It's not horrible. It's not great.
I'll make sure to be the guy in the background, like, heckling you. I appear to be planning on heckling you the entire weekend, so I have my plans.
Well, I'm going to be trying to record as much as I can and doing Facebook Live and taking pictures, because I don't do that enough, I don't think. So people can't get enough of my sexy voice, and that's just a fact. You know?
Facebook Live, yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing those videos. I don't do them very often because usually on Facebook Live I'm talking about beer, but yeah, I know some people do them as kind of like post-mortems after they do a show.
Well, I work downtown, and there's been a lot of protests lately, so I've been Facebook Live and that kind of stuff. And plus, sometimes I'll do my drunken karaoke or my thoughts on, like, I had a Facebook Live, of course, somebody watched it, you know, because it's so important, about I Am Not Your Negro. Which I want to see that movie. It's really good. Really good. You need to go check it out if you get a chance. It's really moving. To me, it was anyway. And it makes you think about shit in a different way. Trust me on that. So I encourage everybody to go see it. Zach, where can everybody find you?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Zachrilege on Twitter, Zachrilege. Zachrilege Cast, there's a page on Facebook, and you can send hate mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. And Zachrilege Cast, you can find it on YouTube, you can find it on iTunes, and probably other podcatcher type things. Weekly interviews, and that's what I got.
Excellent, Zach. And I think I encourage everybody to check out his show because, like I said, he lets people talk, and they seem to like to tell him shit that they wouldn't tell other people. So,
they tell me shit.
Yeah, either good or bad. You can make your own decisions on that, I think. But
I'm too busy drinking a beer to respond and questions.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, but they open up to him, I guess, because he's a good listener, or maybe he drugs him beforehand. I don't know how that works. So.
You can do it through Google Hangouts. It's a government conspiracy.
And well, of course it is. We all know that already, Zach.
I'll show you my tricks.
We already know the jet fuel can't burn the whatever the fuck it is they say.
Deep state hashtag.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know what all the conspiracy theorists, the Bilderberg Group, the fucking Illuminati, chemtrails. Fill in the blank.
You hide recording devices in your beard.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I mean, you have. Like Jimmy Hoffa could be in there. I mean, you got serious beardage.
You know what's funny? I use that example all the time, Jimmy Hoffa, which I wish I could find that.
You could put an entire bomber in there for sure, and probably a glass.
Okay. You're being a little, just a fighter jet, not the whole bomber. Come on, man, you're exaggerating a little bit.
Bomber, it's a beer term. Learn these things. Come on, man, catch up.
Oh, beer bomber, yeah, that's what Sue is.
That's what my co-host She didn't understand the difference between a bomber and a quad. I'm like, no, a quad is a style of beer. A bomber is the size. Never mind. Anyway, we try. Just here, drink this and you'll like it. Yeah,
definitely. If you have any fucking sense, you'll like it or taste it all. Damn it. Anyway, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy, busy drinking that beer. So. Oh
yeah, very busy, but I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm glad I got you back on because I like your rebooted self, and I enjoy the Podunk Polymath. I'm all about the beard.
Most ladies are. That's why I grew it out. But anyway. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. This can be tested with science, and we will find out.
Oh, we will find out. We will. Anyway. All right, Zach. Well, you take it easy now.
Thanks, and have a good night.
You too, man. And that'll do it for this episode of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. I want to thank Zach Law for coming on and talking to me. It was a really cool conversation. He's a great guy, and I really hope he does more with this show because a lot of people like to come on there. He's such a great listener. Of course, if you want to come check out the show, you can come to the podunkpolymath.com. Of course, the music is by ... cdbaby.com/cd/... On Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Google+. I am the Podunk Polymath. You can find me. Of course, my email is podunk.polymath@gmail.com. If you want to become part of the posse, you can go to patreon.com/the Podunk The call-in number is 615-378-POPO-7676, which means also that you get super freedom squared when you call in. Please, somebody call this fucking number. Good God almighty. Nobody ever calls it. I don't even care what you say. Just do something. Anyway, of course, there's also the Podunk Polymath Podcast Posse Facebook group. It's a secret group, but you can ask to join if you come to facebook.com/groups/the Podunk Polymath Podcast Posse, all separated by periods there. Of course, if you look on the side of the page, you will find that you can follow the show on WordPress, currently at 51 followers. Follow me on Twitter. Of course, there is the tweets there that you can see. PayPal donate button. You can subscribe on RSS feed, Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. And there is a Patreon button as well. Recent posts and recent comments. I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. I know it's tough sometimes listening to me ramble on about silly bullshit, but I enjoy it. I hope at least one person enjoys it, because otherwise I'm doing this for nothing. Actually, no, for my own enjoyment. But of course, as a side thing, I guess it's also cool if other people enjoy it as well. So, until next time, y'all take it easy now, okay?